Good morning, everyone. This is Rob Liano, the National Sales Director for AHCP. It is our weekly Wednesday sales trainings. Thank you so much for attending. It's a bit of an interesting topic, and I'm calling it the components to sales success because it is a little more lengthy than what might seem obvious. There are several pieces of the puzzle that have to go together in order to create an overall system of selling. And what I want to discuss up top is how you can become very confident. Because as this picture states, what matters most is how you see yourself. And confidence is very critical in sales. If a client doesn't feel like you sound confident, you're a little hesitant, they are probably not going to trust you enough to buy. When I was doing a group training for an insurance agency on one-call closing, an agent called me afterwards who I had trained prior to that call. And he said, I just figured out the difference between you and I on the phone. And I said, what? And he said that I was more confident in what I was doing. It's one of the first times he really heard me doing a presentation to a large group because we trained personally, one-on-one, face-to-face. And he said, you were just totally confident. I said, well, that's because I was prepared. And preparation, as everyone knows, is key. So your comfort level increases your confidence level, meaning how comfortable you feel either face-to-face or on the phone with a client. And there are factors that will add into or increase your comfort level and therefore your confidence level. Great quote by Marcus Garvey: if you have no confidence in self, you're twice defeated in the race of life, because not only will other people defeat you, but you've defeated yourself. And in sales, you really should be confident about what you're doing, or you will have that fear that's very common in picking up the phone call to making a sale, or talking to a client, or asking for the sale, or asking for a referral. And granted, we're in an era where sales are a slam dunk. During open enrollment, you have a shooting gallery where people need and want and have a deadline to buy. But there are still very often cases where you're not closing everyone you can. So what will it take for you to succeed in sales? One of the main things I said is planning for success. And I'm going to go over several components to see where you may or may not be lacking. Number one, preparation obviously is always the most important thing, because without proper preparation, you'll fail. One of the second things is practice. Very often I will do role playing with agents so that they can practice a script, or I will let them call me and leave a voicemail message so they can practice leaving their voicemail message, because you don't want to sound like you're reading something. You don't want to be stumbling over it. You don't want to find out for the first time where it's headed with a client. And every time I've done this, we would do 2 role plays or 2 run-throughs of a role play on the same phone call. And the first time, everyone would be, oh my gosh, I sound terrible. I said 35 times. I didn't know where this was going. I misread that sentence. But the second time, literally the very next second time on the same phone call, they were about 50% better. So you want to get this to where you're 100% better, making sure you practice submitting policies online, using a CRM. Everything should be done so that you have an awareness and understanding of it before you're encountering clients. A lot of people kind of get thrown in the deep end of the pool and say swim, which we've all been in those situations. So this is something that's really important to really build your confidence level and comfort level. And then, of course, commitment. Sometimes we very easily get frustrated and we'll say, oh man, I'm going to just go back to that. And we get caught up in other things and we don't actually go back to it. We just start selling, because obviously we all need to earn an income. So sometimes we can cut corners, but you have to be committed to putting these components of sales success in place if you are missing any of them. And I'm going to go through an entire list at the end of this session. The other thing, of course, is service. You have to be willing to serve your clients. In order to serve your clients, you have to do a service to yourself in learning all of the components of sales success. Because a lot of people will ask me, hey, give me just like one tip to sell better? And I will answer that by saying, well, then ask me for 10 more tips. It will be the one tip, because there's not really one fast, easy way to do anything successfully, except lotto maybe. And, 80% of those lotto winners are broke 2 years later. So that says something. But you really have to be committed to serving the client properly. And if you are committed to serving the client properly, you can only be committed to becoming an expert in your field and a skilled craftsman or a sales professional. And I think that's really overlooked very often because a lot of people, as I said, they get a license. They maybe have an understanding that, oh yeah, people are looking to sign up because of internet leads. They may not have gotten the full story. And you want the full story, and you want to be able to share that full story with any other agents if you plan on doing anything like an agency and hiring agents under you. The more your process is sound and in place, the more it can be replicated. Now, many of you probably don't have any aspirations to create an agency, but if you do, you have to get yourself, and either way, you should get yourself situated properly so that you can have the career that you both desire and deserve. So as I said, preparation is critical. And of course, there is no substitute for hard work. This is going to take time if you're new. If you're not new, it's going to take an investment of your time to sell. There are many tasks related to running your business because you are basically self-employed running your own business. So there's paperwork, there's follow-up, there's understanding the products, and we're going to get to a whole bunch of that stuff. But you have to actually invest the time up front to get the reward on the back end of things. Now, I want to discuss natural talent and ability because a lot of people say you're born to sell. I actually did a session called Born to Sell on one of our Monday motivations. And it doesn't matter if you're born with natural ability if you're not using the rest of the abilities that are necessary. A really good example is a lot of people, if you're a baseball fan, Manny Ramirez from the Boston Red Sox was an incredible natural talent. But a lot of people feel he never achieved or accomplished what he could have because he had basically a bad attitude and a terrible work ethic. He was considered lazy. From what I've read and understand and from what I've seen and some of his attitude, it seems to make sense. When you hear 20 stories about the same person, it's generally valid rather than if it's just one or two stories. So you may have seen other examples where someone's like, man, they just had the most talent, but no drive, right? Everyone has heard somebody say that about someone. Hopefully it wasn't you, right? So if you don't take that natural ability and add to it, it's very difficult to get to the upper echelon of success. And here's what's interesting. If you have a great personality, if you have a great memory, and you'll remember the products and you make a great interaction or create a great interaction and relationship with clients, that's awesome. You don't have to work on that. Yes, you could enhance it, but you don't have to because that's your natural ability. So what you have to look at is what isn't coming naturally to you. And that's where you need to invest your time in getting better. So if you have certain natural ability, great. You want to use that to your advantage. But I want you to become aware of what doesn't come naturally. And quoting, submitting policies online, talking on the phone while being on the computer. These are all things that are necessary to doing this job really well that may or may not come naturally to you. So that means all you need to do is invest some more time in it. And if you do phone sales, you can create cheat sheets. Products, you could have brochures in front of you, even though they will be when you're online, when you're quoting. A sales script. I always tell people will never know you're reading unless, of course, you keep your head down and your voice sounds muddy or if you are sounding like a robot. But you can create what I consider cheat sheets, even post up the answers to or responses to what people call objections. We used to have Post-it notes all around people's computer screen so they could just at a glance look and see, hey, oh, okay, you need to think about it? Well, boom, and answer it. So there are all of these techniques. I would get a headset telephone so you could have your hands free. That's something that's critical. Just as a little side note, one of the first components, or I should say the first component, I apologize, is product knowledge. Now, what a lot of people do is they kind of browse through a brochure, and it doesn't take long to read it or sit through a video for a half hour and learn about the products you're going to sell. It's kind of critical so that you can properly present these products to the client, because if you don't understand it, how are you going to communicate it so that the client understands it? It's almost impossible to do that. And you really can't leave it up to chance because that's when people say, you know what, send me some information. And we don't want that to happen at the end of a phone call. So the best way to do this is really know the product well enough. And in this day and age, the products in health as well as the senior market, they're all completely similar. In the senior market, they're the same. In health now with the ACA, they vary somewhat, but they're pretty close. So again, you should know the products enough so that you could present them. You may not be able to answer every question that comes up, and that's okay because we have other resources for that. But you really should be able to present a clear option based on the needs of the customer when it comes to products. I would also say it's good to know your competition's products as well, because if you have to tactfully outsell them, you need to know how to do that. So product knowledge for me is a key component and one of the three critical legs of sales success, meaning if you don't know your products, it's very difficult to sell them, right? And if you've encountered any salesperson you've met, whether it's been a car or a cell phone, and they don't seem to know the product to describe it to you, I can assure you, you have not bought from that person and you've gone somewhere else, or you went and did your own research. We are perceived as experts in this industry so that clients don't have to do their own research. If they do, awesome. I love an educated client. But my job as a sales professional is to educate the client on what will fit their needs and, of course, their budget. So if you're not as familiar with the products as you feel you should be, all it takes is putting some time into it. I remember an agent said, man, I have to learn about 15 or 20 different insurance plans from different carriers. He's like, what am I going to do? I said, well, how long do you think it takes you to read a brochure? And he said, yeah, about 10, 15 minutes. I said, start there. Read the first one. Because we always have a little fear when we look at this task and create it to be big and overwhelming. And you have to break it down in little steps. I remember reading a quote about, we're looking up at the top of the mountain going, my gosh, how am I going to get up there, when you need to look down to see where you should place your first step, right? Probably based off an Asian proverb or something like that. So these are the things that we have to do, is make sure we don't look at it as an overwhelming picture, but break it down into the steps we need to take starting now to become successful. The next thing is sales skills. A lot of people in insurance feel that it's not a sales position. Yeah, I'm a consultant and all this stuff. Well, if you work on commission, it's sales, meaning if you don't close a sale, you don't get paid. That means you're a sales professional, hopefully, or at least a salesperson aiming to be a sales professional. So a set of sales skills is really important. I remember when I first started selling vacuums door to door, I took the job because my father said, go into sales, you can earn as much money as you want. And after a couple of weeks, I wasn't earning nearly anything except that was really fed to me from my dad. So I said, hey, I'm really not making what I want. And he said, well, do you know what you're doing? And I was like, no, I really don't know what I'm doing. And it was because I wasn't attending the morning meetings. They were like 7:30 in the morning, which was really too early for me at that time. So once I started attending the meetings, I learned how to qualify a sale, get into someone's home to present the vacuum, how to outsell the vacuum they currently had, how to handle objections, how to get the sale. And miraculously, I started to do better. And that's partly why I did well in insurance, because I already had a sales system in place. And I was immediately able to sell literally my first day when I came over to insurance, after learning the products, of course. So a certain set of sales skills covers a lot. Qualifying the prospect, trial closing the prospect, handling what people call objections, what you're leaving on your voicemail message, understanding how to hear in someone's voice over the phone or watch face-to-face body language or hear their vocal language. All things of this nature that comes into helping you close more sales, because even though we have open enrollment with the ACA, how come people aren't writing 100% of the people they speak to, or 70%, or even 50%? It's because salespeople are letting people go, not closing on the first call, letting them think it over, sending out information, following up too much, chasing maybes, instead of having the components in place to really close the sale. Yes, there are some rock stars that are closing over 50% during open enrollment, but because they are seasoned, they have put this these components in place, and they have a system. It's a whole understanding of what it really takes to become a top producer. Next thing is systems training. I always crack up. There was one guy in an office I used to work in where he would be holding the phone and typing with one finger. And frustrated, he would be exhaling like, ah, on the phone with a client. And then he wondered why his sales weren't where they wanted them to be. So we got him a headset phone and literally made him practice with one of our sales assistants as if they were the client. And he was able to practice typing with two fingers because he still didn't know how to type. But he went through these things and then he understood better and was able to close more sales. So when I say systems, it is the CRM that you're using. If you're using a dialer, you have to know how to use it. If you're submitting policies online, you have to know how to do that. Even right down to searching for a doctor in a network. You need to have all of this stuff down so that you're not stumbling through a phone call with a client. Yes, it's a lot of preparation, as I said, and it is a lot of practice, and it takes commitment. But I can assure you, you will be so much more confident on the phone, it can only show to your clients. So the next thing I want to cover is having procedures in place. Many people I speak to and coach, they're really winging it. They don't have a systematic strategy for when they're going to call on clients, when they're following up with clients, if they're doing a monthly email, procedures for what happens when you write the sale after you hang up the phone or after you leave someone's home. All procedures are very, very important. In fact, I did an entire session on procedure on either a Monday motivation or one of our weekly sales trainings. So you could probably find that in ahcpsales.com under the training tab. Procedure is very important. How many times you're going to call a client? You can't call them every single day, 3 times a day. And I want to add something that I read on an insurance forum where someone said, I call people 6 times a day. And a couple of people commented saying, hey, you know what? That's a good idea. I should try that. And I guess they weren't thinking straight or at all. They were just blindly following someone who said this is their methodology. But when you think about it, does your client really want you to see your number come up 6 times a day? Is that going to really make them want to do business with you when it seems like you don't have anything better to do, or you're just really an overbearing, hardcore used car salesperson? So in any training, even that I will present to you, I want you to always think about it and see, does this make sense? If it makes sense, you should try it. If it doesn't make sense, you could dismiss it, send me an email, say, hey, I think this should be better this way. I'm totally cool with that because I don't know everything. But in the case of that, calling someone 6 times a day, the first thing I thought of was, that's insane. I would not want anyone calling me 6 times a day because, hey, I'm a shopper as well as a salesperson, right? I am a buyer at times, and I don't want to hear from somebody 6 times a day. I would block their number. So when you start to put your procedures in place, try to make sure that they're logical and sound so that they will work for you. And the good part of that is you have this procedure down. You know what to do at all times. You won't forget to put that customer's email in your, MailChimp account for the monthly newsletter that you might be doing. Anything like that, the more you have proper procedures in place, the more productive you're going to be. Being tech savvy is really important. Now, just knowing how to use things like Word, Excel, creating email templates so that if you're always, after you close a sale, I'll explain what I used to do when I was selling full time. I would close a sale. I would immediately pull up my email template for what would be used for closing a sale. And in it, the message would say, hey, and I would just have to fill in the name of the client. Thank you so much for choosing me as your agent. The following, you'll find the following attached, something to this nature. You'll find the following attached: your submitted policy, a link to the doctor's network, whatever it was. I don't remember everything I had in it. But I had a template, meaning I didn't have to type this out every single time I wrote a sale. So I made my life easier because that was part of the procedure and the preparation. So if you don't know how to do certain things on your computer to make your life easier, you want to find out. You definitely want to look into that so that it'll make your life easier. So anywhere you might be able to use your technology, use it to your advantage, because insurance brokers became successful before the internet, before you could purchase leads, right? How did they do it? They had to advertise, they had a storefront, they had a network, they had to do referrals, and it worked. They sold, they had multi-million-dollar businesses, many of them, or at least some of them. Now, in this day and age, we can sell more, faster, because of the technology. So you have to embrace a phone dialer might be a great tool for you to use. A quoting tool, of course, is one of the great components of being able to properly quote your clients, whether you're doing med subs or health. So there are many components that you really want to look into, and you could inquire at AHCP as well, because we have a CRM, Agent Cubed. We're bringing components to the table like that, even right down to a website, and using social media is part of being tech savvy, because there are ways to generate referrals and business and new clients through all of that stuff. And obviously, I can't go into all heavy details about that, but I may be doing a session coming up on social media. I think that might be a good idea. Okay. The next component is organization, which has another component that's been covered in last week's session. I think was getting organized. It's sometimes tough to remember everything I've done. But you have to be organized anywhere. You've seen people or companies that are completely in a disarray. They're not organized. People don't know what they're doing. They're busy, but they're not effective. And there's a very big difference. You want to be effective. You want to have everything organized, your tasks in order of priority, your desk organized, your computer organized, your clients organized by ones you're following up with, ones you're sold, ones that have been submitted and not issued yet, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, organization is key. I have all files and folders on my computer where I could just go, I need to find a PowerPoint. I go click to my AHCP folder under enough subfolder said PowerPoints, and they're in there. So I'm not trying to scroll through files. I don't have to do a search on my computer. I know where everything is, and that's huge because you need to be able to access information rapidly these days because we are in the microwave mentality era. Everyone wants everything right now. That's why there's instant messaging, hugely popular. That's why Facebook is popular, because it's instant attention. People can post something and people respond immediately. Unfortunately, that's part of our challenge because we can't necessarily always respond to everything immediately. But the more organized we are, the more we can respond and react and build our business in a timely manner. And you'll notice that a lot of the things I'm saying to be prepared with are things that will make us more efficient with our time. Because that's the whole thing. You don't want to work 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, forever. You may want to do that in the beginning or during open enrollment. But the more you're able to become great and efficient at these components of sales success, the more time it saves you while doing your job. And that's the whole thing, is investing up front so that it's easier going forward. So it's investment and reward. Sowing and reaping is very simple. And you're all probably aware of that. Goals. A lot of people I speak with in general, whether it's life, business, or sales, they don't really have goals. They're very vague. I've done a couple of sessions on goal setting. So again, you want to go back into the archives and find the ones that may resonate with you, or whatever is on this list where you may need the most assistance. So goal setting is really important because if you don't know where you're headed, you can't get there. In sales especially, if you have a goal of $80,000, how many sales does it take to get there? How many insurance sales? How many med subs? How many final expense added in? How many of our NHIC product plans would you need to add in there, like the Trio Med or the AHCP or the short-term medicals? You should have categories of how many you need to sell to reach your goals. The example I always use is when a insurance company has a contest or a trip where you have to sell X amount to reach it. They usually break it down to it's only 25 sales in the next 90 days to reach $20,000 in premium, and you will win the trip. I actually just won, which I'm blown away and pumped about, a trip to Puerto Rico in October through this prescription card that I have that you literally give out for free. I should check to see if AHCP has anything like that, and we should get that out to our agents. It's the market has become a little smaller for that, but it's all of these things that I actually achieved it by. I haven't done anything with it in 2 years, but because of what I started and invested in and built, I literally went on a trip to Puerto Rico. So you never know what's going to happen when you're really building a business the correct way. There are these cool little bonuses that can obviously pop up. So if you properly set your goals, not only are you earning your income, which is huge because we all need to earn an income, right? Otherwise we wouldn't work. But you're also positioning yourself for potential future growth in ways that you may not see. And I've always noticed that when you show up for an opportunity, there may be more than you expect. So if you've taken on this opportunity and committed and made the decision to become an insurance agent or a broker, commit fully, create monetary goals, set out your steps it takes to get there. Because if you need 2 sales a week or 10 sales a week, if you properly set the strategy up and procedure, meaning you know how many clients you're going to call to do that, how many you're going to meet with, how much networking you need to do, you can actually achieve your goal. And again, a goal is like looking at that big mountain. So you need to break it down into the steps. And it always looks easier and more achievable when you do that. All right, next thing, business plan. We are going to be doing an expanded workshop on building your business, including the components of a business plan. But a lot of people don't look at this as a business. They really still take the attitude that they're an employee, even though you are, in all sense of the word, self-employed, or sense of the words. You are self-employed because this is your business. You're responsible for the income that is coming into your business. So you really want to look at this and figure out what components you're missing. Do you have a mission statement? Do you have a vision? Do you have all the other goals that you might want to achieve? I had an amazing phone call with one of our producers yesterday. It was an hour long. He sent me talking points, and I was so blown away. It was awesome. He literally wants to onboard 10 agents, and he has this whole outline for marketing, all these things that he wanted me to help him as a consultant for AHCP. And the whole plan was in place. It just needed some tweaking, some advice, some of the insight from my experience of working with agencies. And I can assure you he's going to be successful because we're going to create a replicable model, which is basically in place already, for his success and his agents. So I want you to really look at what you'll be doing as a business plan, meaning what are the components you might be missing when you look at how a business runs. Are you running it the same way? Because very often we get into these situations and they just go on autopilot. We don't necessarily look at how other people are doing things. It's like, okay, so this is working well enough. I've seen it even in large agencies where they're successful enough so they don't really change procedure. They don't really, many people just stay on board even though they may be costly, like some agents who aren't producing as much as others, which eats into the overall profitability, but they're just on board because it's business as usual. Business as usual is basically mediocre or failing when you look at overall businesses, right? There are only the really upper echelon or bigger businesses that are really successful. There's a few agencies across the country that are really successful based on volume and things like that, and how they built it to where they may not even have earned money in the first year. They've literally paid it to agents and paid commissions and paid for rent. And then in year 2, 3, 4, and 5 is when that residual starts to grow. And now they're super profitable based on volume. Luckily, if you're an independent agent, you can be profitable a lot sooner, meaning within 90 days, within 6 months, within 1 month. It depends on how you do it and where you're at. But again, it comes down to planning your business properly. Excuse me. I'm talking too much without actually taking any water. So another component of sales success is keeping up on industry news. Even if it's something you do just to post on your social media site, to keep your clients informed. You have to be informed so that they will continuously perceive you as an expert. Meaning, if there's confusion in the marketplace, people are going to seek you out because you know what you're talking about. And there's confusion in the marketplace because the ACA is a constantly evolving thing. Medicare supplement, sometimes points change. It depends on what you're selling. But people want an expert and will purchase from an expert. So if you haven't researched anything in the last year, you probably want to. Just to know what's going on, to watch trends, to see maybe there's a product you need to take on that might be really good for your clients. Like about a year ago, I saw that standalone teledoc product, I'll call it, where you can literally get a prescription written over the phone or via Skype video chat. They will literally do a diagnosis. Either, I guess they're all doctors. I don't know all the details. I would hope they are to write prescriptions, unless it's somebody else doing a diagnosis and handing it off. I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that. But it seems like a really cool niche product in that if someone didn't get insurance through the ACA, can't afford anything, they could afford just $20-something, $30-something a month, so that at least they can get a prescription written and really, I guess, what might be considered a checkup. Now, I haven't researched how well it works yet because it's something that just happened to catch my eye, but it's built into other components that I've seen in Health Depot's product. I believe they have that, and elsewhere where you would see this thing called Teledoc, where you could just call 24 hours a day, 365, and get an update. So things like that you want to keep abreast of. So there's industry news in the changing of the ACA, as an example. There's industry news in the products, like we've announced two this year: the simplified issue short-term med through NHIC and the guaranteed issue short-term med. So if you're not familiar with that, that's something you want to look into. All right, so there's a difference between being lazy and being comfortable. Now, this person is a couch potato to the fullest extent of being a couch potato. So I am not saying you want to take it easy. I am saying you want to become comfortable with your job, because that's anywhere you go. If you sign up for a contract job and you're, I don't know, an accountant, you have to become comfortable. And how you become comfortable is over time investing in what will make you comfortable. So all of those components I want you to keep in your mind to decide which ones you are weak on. In fact, let me just go back for a moment. Where is it in these components that you're lacking? Is it product knowledge, sales skills, systems training, procedures, tech savvy, organization goals, industry? Wherever it is, you have the opportunity to invest your time in getting better so that you don't end up like this guy, dead and broke with a lot of beer and cigarettes. Okay. Malcolm Gladwell, really, really insightful author, said practice isn't the thing you do once you're good. It's the thing you do that makes you good. And if you think back to something you did in high school, whether it was sports, whatever it was, you may have had a natural ability, like I touched on, but the practice made you good. It gave you the ability to have that confidence, right? So if you don't have confidence in certain areas, it would tell me that you need to practice. So this is what practice means. By definition, there are two, and they're both applicable to what we do. Well, I stumbled over that. They're both applicable to what we do. One definition is the actual application or use of an idea, belief, or method, as opposed to theories about such application or use. And I'll give you an example. There are a ton of people who have theories like don't use a script. You don't want to be reading a script. Well, then what do you do? That's not really a sound idea, because I don't know what to do then if I don't have anything to follow. There has to be some kind of outline in a form of script. So questions, what I do in order. So how am I going to apply this if it's a theory, right, about what I'm doing? No, this is the this is the actual, wow, I'm stumbling over these alliterations here, man. It's the actual application of a method. So you have to have a script in front of you until you memorize it or until you have your whole presentation down. You can't simply wing it. So that's one of the definitions, is the actual application of, meaning putting it into practice. The second definition, applies to us as well. Repeated exercise in or performance of an activity or skill so as to acquire or maintain proficiency in it. Basically, it means now, I think it's key here because I'm going to go off for a second. Acquire or maintain proficiency, meaning you have to keep in practice to maintain the proficiency. Like, it's so funny that I always wondered why people said they're practicing law or practicing medicine. I'm like, well, don't they have it down yet? No, it's because they're maintaining proficiency in it, or at least I hope they are. We have to do that with continued education as an insurance agent. So if you are not proficient yet, you need to practice and you need to put it into practice. So it's both learning and doing. Because I can train you in every sales skill possible for this job. Selling over the phone is what I mastered, and that's what I became known for. And it doesn't matter until you do it and get out there and adapt the presentation to your personality and learn from clients and start to incorporate stories you're hearing from clients with other clients so that you'll be able to sell more, close more, learn more about your demographic, learn what people's overall main needs are. So those are the focus of your phone calls and things like that. So it is twofold, and it all comes down to practice. So the big question, in what area do you need improvement? And I'm going to give you the takeaway from this phone call, and they are two if you can do one or the other. You should be able to do one, if not both, but you should at least be able to do the first one. Number one, do an honest self-assessment. As I said, what are the things that are holding you back? Why do you not feel confident? What are you not comfortable with? Is it technology? That's very often the case. Is it speaking to customers, cold calling? Whatever it is, you can get better. Yes, by understanding what it takes and then doing it. So number one is do a really honest self-assessment of yourself, because that will allow you accountability and overall growth. Instead of thinking, oh, I'm doing fine, really look at what those challenges are. Second thing, ask for honest feedback from an associate. If you work with someone else or you have anyone, a spouse, whatever it is, a friend in the business, pitch them over the phone.